ReZero by Tapai Nagatsuki, produced by Six-Tail Novel with Artail AI. If you are interested in creating your own audiobook like this, visit Artail AI and claim free premium with code Artail.
Right now, the return by death phenomenon was on the third series of loops from my point of view. The first set concerned the loops related to the badge theft incident on the day of my summoning. The second was centered around the demon beast attack on Roswaal Manor. This is the third one. I've died twice already, and what do I have to show for it? In the previous loops, I had pieced things together from information gleaned over several run-throughs of Return by Death, managing to break out of seemingly impossible situations. Yet this time, I had blundered to my death, not once, but twice. I didn't even have the full picture of what had happened in each loop that led to my death. But even with such paltry gains from Return by Death, I'd gained one, and only one, solid piece of information. Pateljas Romane Conti. He, the commander of the Oddballs and the Witch Cult, was the root cause of the entire tragedy that had befallen the village and mansion. Eradicating that abominable madman was now the driving force behind all of my actions. To escape from the loop, I needed to cast a very wide net and dredge the depths of my memory. The hatred that I had accrued from my first and second death stoked the flames of my bloodlust. First, I need to figure out how much time I actually have. The witch cult raid on the mansion and village had taken place in the preceding half a day before I had reached the village. Pathetic details of my second death aside, I had arrived in the village at more or less the same time. Working backward from that, I have at most 5D. No, 4.5 days? Upon voicing the words, I ground my teeth at just how little time it was. When considering how long it took to travel from the royal capital to the mansion, that didn't leave me more than 2 days. In that limited interval, I had to stop the witch cult by wringing Betelgeuse's neck. I can cry about it later. Next is figuring out the victory condition for breaking out of these loops. An absolutely unavoidable tragedy would unfold at the mansion and the village, and the witch cult was responsible. The only answer that I could come up with in response to my current fate: I'm going to butcher Betelgeuse. By putting an end to that crafty murderer, that madman, the root of all evil, everything could be saved, and clearing that simple condition required an equally simple solution. In other words, power. I needed a group of my own to face the witch cult under Betelgeuse's command. When I considered that, the military might of the Emilia faction was actually quite meager. In the first place, I had never seen a hint of private troops under the command of Roswaal. Perhaps Roswaal himself was so powerful that he didn't need an army to defend his territory. Come to think of it, where the hell was Roswaal during the attack? I hadn't caught sight of him during my first or second time through the current series of loops. The magic user was gaudy in both appearance and fighting methods. If he'd fought seriously, there would have been clear evidence around the mansion, but no such signs were apparent. The witch cult attacks right when Roswaal's away. Or maybe Roswaal couldn't fight because he was assassinated out of the blue. If it was the latter, then the witch cult had been meticulous, and if it was the former, Roswaal had truly dropped the ball. I could only sigh either way. Besides, I still don't know anything about that monster that wrecked the mansion at the end of my second time around. I recalled the sight of the four-legged beast I had caught a glimpse of right before my death, so massive that the creature could have been mistaken for a mansion itself. Its breath froze everything around it. No doubt I had died from the freezing cold. If that monster was part of the witch cult's arsenal, I really don't have enough strength to put up a fight. Barring my way were the witch disciples, Betelgeuse, and quite possibly that snow-breathing monster as well. The balance of power simply put me at an overwhelming disadvantage. I needed a way to bolster my side, and I knew just the place for that.
After dropping by the shops and stalls along Merchant Street, running through the middle strata of the royal capital, Subaru and Rem arrived back at Crucia's mansion right on the cusp of evening. Holding each other's hands under a sky gradually becoming scarlet, they were greeted by Wilhelm at the front gate.
I see you have returned.
The aged gentleman, dressed in long-sleeve, formal black clothing, narrowed his blue eyes as he saw the two of them nestled so close.
Sir Subaru, I believe it is the nature of a boy to have a fickle heart, but as an individual, I cannot approve.
What are you talking about, Wilhelm? I'm just holding Rem's hand so I don't get lost. Isn't that right, Rem?
Yes, of course it is. Subaru's sense of caution is rather lacking, so I would be too worried about what might happen were I to take my eyes and hands off him. Even when we were at the mansion, I couldn't let my guard down.
I think that might be overstating it just a little.
Subaru and Rem light-heartedly responded to Wilhelm's remark. Subaru smiled weakly after hearing Rem's seemingly earnest reply as he shifted his gaze to the area in front of the mansion's entrance.
Seems like someone's meeting with Krush again.
He was looking at the dragon carriage outside the iron-barred front gate as he posed the question. The carriage lacked showy ornamentation, but was still somewhat refined, no doubt to display the owner's status. Subaru saw that the red land dragon drawing it along had a very glossy scaled hide. The driver, wearing formal clothes of his own, did not engage in pleasantries beyond a simple acknowledgement with his eyes.
Correct. Now that she is participating in the royal selection, Lady Cruz cannot refuse those who request an audience with her. Of course, she invited some of them herself.
Guess all sorts come out of the woodwork to meet with a potential future king. Well, I guess even people like that have their own problems.
Wilhelm broke into a wan smile as Subaru briskly stated the facts. But then, the old man's face twitched. His blue eyes peered into Subaru's, seemingly searching for something.
Sir Subaru, have you had some change of heart while you were away?
What is it all of a sudden? Did I become a lady killer in the 2 or 3 hours I was gone?
You wear the visage of a man haunted by an ordeal, and one of no small consequence.
Subaru responded to the words with nonchalance, but his expression changed. It shifted from a vague smile to a real one.
Oh, Wilhelm, you big kidder. What, you think I went through some kind of weird transformation?
It is difficult for me to call it a minor change. There must be a reason why there is now such a dark glint in your eyes. I understand better than most.
As the man nodded, Subaru realized that he had never taken a good look at Wilhelm's eyes. Wilhelm was an individual seething with hatred against someone for some unforgivable sin, which was no doubt why he had noticed the flames of hatred burning within Subaru.
Are you going to kick me out?
No, it is no doubt best to let you do what you wish, Sir Subaru. I much prefer you as you are now rather than how you were but a short time ago.
The two exchanged dark smiles. Though neither shared what tormented him on the inside, they understood each other at least on the surface.
Subaru, you are making a bad face.
Hee hee hee. Ow, ow, ow. Hey, Rem, you'll tear it off.
The pair's excessively dark exchange was interrupted when Rem painfully pulled on Subaru's ear.
Please do not give me reasons to worry.
Hey, it's super rare for you to ask for something, but you're being way too vague. In any case, you can relax. I'll deal with everything from here on out, somehow.
Rem, unable to keep track of the conversation, had grown concerned. Subaru poured as much affection as he could into a smile. Now that he knew what he needed to do, Subaru didn't feel apprehensive at all. After all, it was reassuring to know that the only thing he had to do was murder someone. So Subaru wondered why Rem's face seemed even more concerned than before. Her eyes showed her hesitation, but just before she said something.
It would appear that the guest will be taking his leave.
As Wilhelm murmured, a man exited the mansion's entry hall and began striding toward them. He was a tall man with long blonde hair, clad in formal clothing with sophisticated trimmings. He was probably 30 years old, give or take. He had an air of capability about him. The man casually acknowledged their gazes as he reached the front of the gate, touching the well-groomed beard on his chin. My, what unusual people. The visitor's smile was warm, his manner of speaking was gentle, and he had a low, beautiful voice that seemed to naturally filter into people's minds. He gave them a friendly look, but Subaru did not recognize him. Naturally, this brought furrows to the young man's brow. Pardon my rudeness. I am called Russell Fellow. I hope we can see more of each other in the future. Subaru Natsuki.
Thank you kindly. Incidentally, how do you know my name? Someone give it to you. Anonymity is more my speed, so if my name gets around, I'll be too embarrassed to go about my business.
Just a little something I heard through the grapevine. After all, you are a famous man who declared himself the Knight of Lady Emilia, candidate at the Royal Selection Conference. That being said, few are aware that this very person is currently staying at Lady Crush's residence. Subaru was guarded, but Russell displayed no ill will on his face. Even so, Subaru was cautious of what might be hidden in the reply. The man seemed to be intentionally engaging him in a verbal joust, which made it hard for Subaru to like him. The atmosphere was steadily worsening when Wilhelm briskly interrupted with an aside.
Mr. Russell, did your meeting with Lady Crush go well?
Russell shrugged and shook his head. Unfortunately, no. Lady Crush is a remarkably strict person. She turns rather sharp eyes toward us, as she is quite strict in her views. Judging from events to date, swaying her will not be easy.
Is that so? How unfortunate. If you have not yielded, it will be difficult to make others agree.
With a noble title and you on her side, I think it is the other candidates I should pity, Mr. Wilhelm. You call yourself Wilhelm Trias now, yes? Wilhelm nodded in response to Russell's words, lowering his deeply wrinkled face.
As I am now, nothing good will come from invoking the name of my wife's family.
You are very strict as well, so much so that I am mightily impressed as someone who cannot live in the same fashion. That being said, allow me to cheer on your side. The conversation, which was inscrutable from the outside, came to an end, and Russell walked to the dragon carriage in front of the gate. Then, just before climbing in, he looked back and said, "Should Lady Crush succeed in her current endeavors, we would feel nothing but delight. It would help achieve your great ambition as well, Mr. Wilhelm. I have high hopes." With that, Russell climbed aboard the dragon carriage. Wordlessly, the driver saluted and spurred the land dragon to a run. Like the man holding the reins, the land dragon was very unsociable and surprisingly silent as it galloped away. Subaru watched the dragon carriage fade into the distance as he asked Wilhelm about the visitor.
Wilhelm, who was that guy?
Russell Fellow, treasurer for the Merchants Guild, operating here in the royal capital. In name, he is a merchant like any other, but he is a crafty manipulator of both legitimate and unscrupulous movements of goods in the capital. It would be wise to assume he knows more about you than simply your name, Sir Subaru.
It is downright creepy to have an older man interested in me instead of a girl.
I share that sentiment. Now, then.
After his response to Subaru's casual banter, Wilhelm turned to face them once more.
Mr. Russell was the last visitor for today. I had thought to finally head in. But did you have something you wish to discuss, Sir Subaru?
Subaru scratched his face, feeling awkward about throwing off Wilhelm's plans. That said, beating around the bush wasn't going to help anything.
Sorry, but I'm the last visitor for today. I want to have a talk with Crush. The topic is whether she could lend me a hand with something.
That you are my final visitor for today is an amusing turn of events.
Heedless of the fact that her schedule had gone awry, Crush responded with a good-humored smile. Dressed in male attire, Crush was sitting heavily in a chair in the reception room with her legs elegantly crossed. She stroked her deep green hair, her amber eyes narrowing as her gaze pierced his chest. Subaru thought her sharp look would have bowled over his old self in an instant. Now, with Rem at his side, he didn't feel nervous at all facing her like this. In the meantime, Ferris stood behind Krush, his feline ears twitching as he glared at Subaru in obvious dismay.
Fortunately, there is a break in my schedule between now and supper. I am able to humor you without any issues until then.
Since Mew asked out of the blue, this is the only time she has available. Meow. The depth of Lady Krush's indulgence should make Mew bow your head to the ground in gratitude, Subaru.
Do not be concerned. I need no thanks nor groveling.
Oh my, Lady Krush, your gallantry and generosity are making me fall for you even more. I'm in love.
Ferris and Krush engaged in their usual game where the master rebuked her servant for his attitude.
Beating around the bush won't solve anything, and I don't think you like that stuff anyway.
Subaru needed to be careful how he broached the topic, but a roundabout discussion would only draw Krush's ire.
You sought this audience. I shall let you start. What is it you want?
She really did get right to the point. Subaru licked his dry lips to moisten them, took a deep breath and dived in.
The witch cult, or whatever it's called, is planning to attack Roswaal's territory. I want you to lend me your strength so we can crush them.
Subaru cut right to the issue at hand. These were the conditions necessary for fulfilling his goal. He needed raw fighting power to oppose the witch cult. Without Roswaal to rely on, he had to go elsewhere, and Krush was a good fit.
I see. The witch cult, is it?
Subaru's request garnered various reactions from the others in the reception room, but Krush nodded. When her glossy lips turned up in a wry smile, Subaru was startled by this side of her he hadn't seen before. Her response had betrayed all of Subaru's expectations, but the fuse had already been lit. Subaru's heart beat hard and fast as he waited for Krush's next action, when…
What is the matter? I told you, this is your time to speak.
While Subaru hesitated, the thin smile remained on Krush's face as she inclined her head. The unexpected remark threw him off somewhat.
It's as I said just now.
Surely you do not intend to conclude with that request alone. What is your reason for asking this of me? What will come about as a result? What advantage would I gain from accepting your call for aid? One cannot dub this a negotiation when those things are not yet clear.
Work, Subaru's voice caught. Krush seemed turned off as she closed one of her eyes. From that gesture alone, Subaru knew just how impudent he had been.
I suppose you're right about that. Sorry, that was rude of me. Bear with me a little. I don't really have any experience with negotiations like this.
It's only natural to acknowledge personal shortcomings. Do not worry, but this conversation lasts only until supper. Keep this in mind.
Mentioning the time limit directly after a display of generosity plainly showed that she was employing both the carrot and the stick.
First, the reason I'm asking for your help, put simply, we don't have enough manpower, way too little, to stand up against the number of witch cult attackers. As a result, we can't fend off the assault.
A simple story, but is Lord Mathers not sufficient by himself? He may well be the strongest fighter out of anyone in Lugunica. The witch cult should be no match when relying on numbers alone.
If they all gathered in one place, that might be the case, but it's not. There's only one of Roswaal, and they'll be attacking at least 2 places at once.
If nothing else, the village and the mansion were already 2 targets for certain. He remembered hearing sweeping Kreen and the like multiple times. It was possible they'd assault even passing dragon carriages and traveling merchants.
I see. I understand your position. However, is this not Lord Mathers neglecting his domain? The duty of a lord is to maintain his martial might to keep the peace. If his overconfidence has led him to be lax in these duties, his reputation as Marquis will inevitably suffer.
I can't disagree with a single word you said. Anyway, for those reasons, we don't have enough to deal with the witch cult. I want something to fight with, the power of numbers.
For the purpose of negotiations, Subaru concealed that Roswaal and the power he brought to the table might not even be present. He glanced sideways at Wilhelm. If his request was accepted, Wilhelm was of course a part of Krush's forces that he hoped to borrow. Perhaps understanding the meaning behind Subaru's gaze, Krush exhaled as she seemed to sink into deep thought.
The witch cult. They are finally making a move. I see.
Well, we figured as much when Lady Emilia, a half-elf, rose onto the stage.
As Krush murmured and Ferris agreed. Master and servant nodding to each other, Subaru furrowed his brows. But before he could ask anything, Subaru shifted his focus to his side, where Rem, seated there, silently pursed her lips as fierce emotion poured out of her. The expression on her profile was intentionally blank, but her internal turmoil was obvious. The witch cult, the object of Rem's hatred, was now Subaru's greatest enemy. He probably had the same look in his eyes as she did.
Your circumstances are clear now. Next, I'll hear the reason for choosing to ask my house for aid, and your logic in doing so.
I picked you and your people because you have the best chance of turning this thing around. Besides, you've given Rem and me your hospitality, and I think it's easier to work with you than the other candidates.
Subaru had expected this line of questioning, so he had an answer prepared. Deep down, he believed there were others who were easier to deal with than Krush. But Subaru's own sentiments and the ease of contacting her at the moment had led him to the current meeting.
Easier to work with, you say?
Yeah, that's right. That's why I wanted to come speak to you about this.
Subaru Natsuki, allow me to correct you about one thing.
As she received Subaru's reply, Krush gave him a beaming smile, rich in meaning, as she raised a single finger.
My hospitality for you as a host has engendered a misunderstanding. For this, I apologize.
Whoa. What do you mean, a misunderstanding?
I am not treating you like an enemy. However, Emilia and I are already political rivals. Do you see? Emilia stands in opposition to me.
But you took us under your roof.
Because a contract had been formed. Your treatment is part of that agreement. Regardless of how I treat you in this mansion, it does not change our position as rivals beyond these doors.
Even the first time around, Krush had declared that Subaru would be her enemy the moment the contract was over. It was both a sincere statement of fact and a declaration that it was useless to seek anything from her.
In other words, there's no chance of joining forces with you?
That is a different matter altogether. As I said before, Subaru Natsuki, if there are to be negotiations, there must be acceptable benefits for both sides. Everything until now, including your motivations, have served only to clarify your premises. I merely wish to ask from your point of view what I stand to gain from lending you military strength. After all...
At that point, Krush's words trailed off. She put down an elbow, resting her chin against her palm.
It could be said that no explanation was really necessary. Now that Emilia's lineage is common knowledge, we have been expecting the witch cult to make a move. Regardless of the circumstances, we were already sure of this.
Apparently, Krush had never questioned that the witch cult would try something. Perhaps it could be called common knowledge peculiar to her world. Either way, it was working in Subaru's favor.
That being the case, this negotiation hinges on mutual benefit. In your case, you would be able to borrow my house's might to eliminate the menace of the witch cult. What of my house, then? This is what I ask you.
Simply saving people isn't.
It would be ideal, in a sense, if that were reason enough for us to mobilize.
The gaze Krush turned upon Subaru was like a blade, cutting apart the illusion in his reply as it aimed to inflict a mortal wound. Subaru desperately grasped for a comeback before he was shut down altogether.
Right. For example, lending a hand in this time of crisis would mean that our camp would owe you a pretty big favor.
Am I to take that to mean you understand that if I accept your proposal, it would entail Emilia's forfeiture in the royal selection?
The sharp thrust of her comment left Subaru's mouth hanging open.
It is natural, yes. Throwing yourself at the mercy of another lord when your own territory is in danger is an issue of fitness for the throne. If someone cannot protect their subjects through the rule of law and strength of arms, how can they be expected to shoulder the burden of an entire kingdom? Subaru Natsuki. I shall correct you about one more thing.
Krush pointed the tip of her finger toward Subaru, cowed into silence, as if ready to drive it through him.
By conducting these negotiations, you bear Emilia's fate on your shoulders. Naturally, everything you say affects her, and it carries the same weight as Emilia's words. This is not a decision you should make lightly, nor are the words you say easily taken back.
Ah.
Moreover, I ask again, should you owe me in this matter, it will mean the defeat of the Emilia camp. Are you truly fine with this?
It was only at this moment that Subaru began to genuinely understand his position. They were not participating in a light-hearted after-school debate club where Subaru had no real responsibility to bear. Theirs was a great stage where a single statement could alter the fates of many people, or even decide the direction the entire kingdom would take.
But even so,
Too late, he realized what a heavy burden he carried on his shoulders, but Subaru ground his teeth. Just as Krush said, borrowing her strength under the present terms meant that Emilia would lose her place in the royal selection, a failure from which there was no turning back. But if he didn't lean on Krush's strength, all that awaited was the rampage of the witch cult's fanatics and tragedy. Subaru's brain painfully creaked from the ceaseless back and forth of the scales in his head.
still, I want you to help us.
Even if it means losing the royal selection?
It's better to be alive than not. If you die, that's the end of everything.
Subaru's shoulders fell as he replied, unable to conceal his dejection and despair at his own powerlessness. If you die, then it's over. The terrible spectacle of the ruined village, of Rem, who was sitting right beside him, meeting a cruel death. Subaru didn't have the courage to witness it again. He lowered his head and swallowed the humiliation. It was necessary so he could at least save their lives.
Understood. In that case, the House of Carston shall not lend you any assistance whatsoever.
For an instant, Subaru froze, unable to process what had just been said to him.
Huh?
It was less a word and more a sound of doubt that was also a simple indication of incomprehension, but Krush brushed it off, crossing her slender legs.
I repeat, your request for my house to send aid to the Mather's domain, to lend military forces to Emilia, is hereby rejected.
Subaru gritted his teeth as Krush spelled it out in terms he could understand. Feeling belittled by her composed statement, Subaru flew into a rage.
Don't pup! Why are you?
First, the advantage to my side that you so bitterly conceded. Emilia's defeat in the royal selection has no weight as a bargaining chip of use in these negotiations. Do you understand why?
What the hell? Kissing one of your rivals goodbye should be plenty worth it for you.
Do you realize what you have said? As far as Emilia's defeat is concerned, it will come about without any intervention on my part whatsoever.
What? Are...
You saying? Subaru would have said, but then he realized it for himself.
As you have stated, without aid, Emilia cannot protect the Mather's domain, meaning, at this rate, and completely without my involvement, Emilia will be defeated in the royal selection.
Where?
Indeed, were I to recklessly lend assistance, the knowledge I was involved in Emilia's defeat would itself become a problem with the other candidates. As you are aware, my house is currently the favourite to win this royal selection. If it became known that I booted another candidate from the contest, I could not fail to attract the enmity of all the others.
In other words, as long as she quietly watched, Krush would gain the benefit Subaru had indicated with no harm to herself. There was no reason for her to court danger unnecessarily. It would be akin to snatching chestnuts out of a fire. But that meant...
You're going to let the people in Roswaal in that village be slaughtered by the witch cult's attack?
Subaru had shouted, but Krush's icy gaze gave him pause.
I shall correct your misunderstanding, and I am changing the subject, Subaru Natsuki.
Ugh!
It is Emilia's lack of power to protect her domain and Emilia's lack of ability that has invited disaster upon her populace, not mine.
Lack of power, lack of ability. The weight of those words shocked him. Subaru felt a need to rail against Krush's claims. And yet, the childish, emotional retorts welling up within him did not grant him the strength to refute Krush's sound argument.
It would seem you have said your piece.
Krush checked the time, as indicated by the amber light of the magic time crystal above the reception room's door.
It shall soon be Earth time. Time for supper. All according to schedule, apparently.
Seeing Krush about to rise from her seat, Subaru was suddenly stricken by nervousness as he called out,
Wait!
He raised his hand to stop Krush from breaking off the conversation, desperately searching inside his head for some way to keep negotiations going.
You'll really abandon them? The folks in the village haven't done anything wrong. There's no reason for them to die.
But the words that came out of Subaru's mouth were little more than a feeble attempt to appeal to another's charity. A faint look of disappointment entered Krush's eyes as she listened to his immature reasoning.
I told you, I am not the one whose strength is insufficient.
Don't you feel bad knowing and abandoning them anyway? If you have the power to save them, why won't you? What's wrong with helping people? Because it's someone else's land, it's not your problem. Would you just shut up and listen a little?
It's fine, Ferris.
But, Lady Krush, this time he's gone too far. Meow.
He has bared his spirit. It does not sit well with my beliefs to withhold an answer.
Though Ferris howled in dismay, he quietly bowed to Krush's command. Watching him from the corner of her eye, Krush sat straighter in her chair. After taking a deep breath, she mulled over Subaru's statement.
You ask, is it wrong of me to overlook this, to allow them to die?
That's right. You're aiming to be king, right? Carry the whole country on your back? What kind of king overlooks a whole village?
I shall correct one misconception of yours.
Krush raised a finger, her gaze shot right through Subaru, seemingly reproaching him for his frivolousness.
When I rejected your proposal, I stated one reason. I shall elucidate the other chief reason for my doubts.
Krush had another reason for not being open to Subaru's proposal, the reason she was abandoning Emilia, and that
is because I do not trust your story enough to order my house into action.
Her statement threw the premise of the entire meeting back at Subaru, stunning him.
Ah?
The witch cult? Yes, it's possible that they would make a move at this juncture. It would be consistent with their creed and their activities to date. I can make a deduction based on those factors. However, the problem lies elsewhere.
Elsewhere?
It is a simple matter. How is it that you can determine the exact place, date, and time of where they will strike next?
Pointing her finger towards Subaru, Krush's eyes and voice were like daggers.
The cult is absolutely inscrutable, to the point that its true nature is completely unknown. It's telling that their organization has survived for hundreds of years while evading destruction, causing immense damage in the meantime. So how exactly have you learned of their next vile act?
But you never said a word of that before.
I did not feel the need to be that explicit. Since you could not accept it, I pointed out the heart of the matter for you. If you still cannot, there is but one possibility.
In place of Subaru, cowed into silence, Krush slowly spelled it out for him.
Naturally, wouldn't you know about the witch cult if you were part of it?
Don't mess with...
This time, fierce, irrepressible emotion rushed to his throat to turn into a scream, but it stopped just on the verge of that, though not because of Subaru's self-control. That reason was the increasingly ghastly aura rising from Rem as she silently watched the exchange between Krush and Subaru.
Lady Krush, surely you jest.
Krush tilted her head at the modesty of Rem's tone, no different from before.
There is no way that Subaru could be part of the witch cult.
Is that so? Judging by Subaru Natsuki's statement, if he cannot voice the reason he has such knowledge, I can reach no other conclusion. Have you not sensed for yourself why I say this?
I have not.
No doubt Krush detected the slight hesitation in her statement. Rem, Who could sense the witch's scent coming from Subaru? Had been tripped up by Crucia's casual, leading question.
At any rate, for both of these reasons, my house cannot lend Emilia aid due to insufficient trust. Moreover, you have not been granted the right to act as a negotiator in the first place, have you? Earlier, I threatened you by stating that Emilia's advance, or retreat, rested upon your shoulders, but in truth, the problem precedes even that. At this juncture, you have no responsibility at all.
He'd charged ahead alone, tried to protect things alone, and failed alone. Crucia's words calmly tore into Subaru's bared heart.
As you are now, meekly remaining here under my protection, you possess no power that can move me.
Oh, over and over again, her words crashed into him, exposing Subaru's helplessness, pressing onto him his ignorance, driving home his spinelessness and mocking him for being senseless, rash, indiscreet, and ugly, with backhanded sympathy thrown in for good measure. Subaru was overwhelmed by the realization that absolutely nothing had gone the way he wanted. Had he made a mistake somewhere? He was only trying to do the right thing. Thinking himself correct, he believed someone would help him, and so he had searched, beseeched, and begged.
The witch cult is coming. They're going to slaughter everyone in the village.
Subaru pleaded with so much anger and sadness that he felt like his throat was about to burst. He'd seen it. He'd felt each and every one of their deaths. All the precious people he cared about had turned to white crystal as everything in the world froze over. If nothing was done, the heartless reality of the situation meant that it was certain that tragedy would happen again. Why can't anyone understand that? Why won't people get out of my way and let me prevent such a terrible fate?
Kill them! Just kill them already! Don't you get it? You can't let people like that live. Kill them! Help me, damn it! Chur! Help me, damn it!
Subaru fell to his knees, prostrating himself as he earnestly implored her for assistance. If he needed to put his forehead to the floor and beg, he would happily play the clown. As long as Crush would lend her strength, he didn't mind being looked down upon or insulted. He'd even bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken. As long as his bloodlust could be sated, then.
So, that is the true motive for your actions?
But in the face of Subaru's sincere, unwavering, humiliating plea.
You hate the witch cult. That's the reason you approached Emilia, is it not?
This woman of influence, who never made decisions based on her emotions, held not the slightest shred of pity. Torn apart by her cold voice and gaze, Subaru was speechless, his shoulders trembling. Engulfed by a torrent of emotions, Subaru no longer knew whether he was feeling anger, sadness, or some strange mixture of the two.
No, I just want to save everyone.
Kirsch's conclusion was off the mark. The idea that he acted solely because of hatred for the witch cult was nothing more than a misunderstanding from an incomplete perspective. Subaru's feelings were always rooted in trying to help others, weren't they? And yet, he could not raise a single word in rebuttal.
You cannot deceive others with the lies you tell yourself. Right now, the glint in your eyes can only be called bloodlust or madness. Have you not noticed, Subaru Natsuki?
Crush's gaze was both harsh and yet filled with something that resembled pity.
They have been like that ever since the moment you returned to the mansion.
Her dry observation elicited a dramatic reaction from Subaru. Unwittingly, he covered his eyes, as if to find out for himself that which he could not see, even though it only further proved that he could not refute Crush's accusation.
I do not know why you are so obsessed with the witch cult. The cult has perverted the lives of many. Perhaps you are one among them. Perhaps your anger and hatred are entirely just. However, that is irrelevant in these negotiations.
Even if I hate the witch cult, so what? They're the blight of this world. It'd be better if you just killed every last one of ABIS. True, that's what I think. But it isn't a reason to break off negotiations and abandon people.
Do not change the subject again. Subaru Natsuki, it's true. My suspicion that hatred is the reason for your conduct is unrelated to negotiations. More precisely, The fact that you are unfit to negotiate with me is of great import, for it brings into question the propriety of what you seek to discuss.
What do you mean, unfit?
Subaru, clenching his teeth to the point that they seeped blood, kept lobbing questions in an attempt to cling to something. The end of this conversation meant the end of negotiations. That was his pressing fear.
If my hypothesis is correct, and the motivation for your actions is an unbridled loathing for the witch cult, then I can only wonder if you approached Emilia purely to use her as a stepping stone in the first place.
I approach her, stepping stone?
It was clear that if Emilia participated in the royal selection and the circumstances of her birth were made public, the witch cult would predictably move according to its beliefs. If someone was hoping to catch the cultists under their thumb, despite the fact that it was normally impossible to find even a trace of their activities, no other plan could have greater odds of success.
You're saying I'm using Emilia as a pretense to get revenge?
Subaru pounded his fist into the table before him, raising a shout at the unbelievable accusation.
Do you think your display just now and simply yelling, "No," can convince me? Hatred shows clearly in your eyes, and bloodlust oozes from your every word, the sort that clings to a person so thickly and grows so hard it can never be scraped away, let alone forgotten.
No. Crucia's statement did not capture Subaru's true character in the slightest.
They're evil whether I hate them or not. You can't let people like that live. That's why we should kill them all. That'll save everyone. It'll help everybody. No one has to suffer. Those bastards just need to die.
I have told you already, Subaru Natsuki. If you do not even believe the lies you tell yourself, there is no chance they will deceive anyone else.
While Subaru breathed raggedly, his eyes bloodshot, Crush refuted him in a hard voice. As Subaru's shoulders heaved, she looked up at him with narrowed eyes from her seat and spoke.
Bereft of hatred, bloodlust, and bile toward the witch cult, your statements are unconvincing.
Why?
When Subaru spoke with a broken voice, Crush looked at him with sympathy and pity in her eyes.
Do you really not understand?
However, Subaru's brows furrowed with perplexity at what Crush was getting at. She lowered her eyes, unable to conceal her disappointment and dismay at his reaction.
You have not said, "I want to save Emilia," even once.
Huh?
You claim to want to save people, to protect people, smoothing things over on the surface while darker emotions boil up inside you. At the very least, it is inconsistent with what I saw of you in the throne room.
Unable to understand the meaning of Crush's words, Subaru wavered, his gaze hollow. I wasn't thinking about saving Emilia. It couldn't be true. Ever since he had been transported to this new world, from the first time she had saved his life, Subaru had lived for Emilia. His feelings were no different in the throne room, during the incident at the parade ground, or even during his negotiation with Crush. If the situation was left to play out as it was, he'd lose her and the village. His actions were for the sake of saving them, and absolutely not, because hatred had seized his heart. Abruptly, a voice struck Subaru, breaking the silence.
I cannot permit you to advance any farther.
Subaru's mind was instantly jolted back to reality. In front of him was Wilhelm, standing straight. The elderly man had placed himself beside the table, separating Subaru and Crush with compassion on his deeply wrinkled face. For some reason, that downward tender gaze was really rubbing Subaru the wrong way. Abruptly, something tugged on his sleeve.
Subaru.
Rem was grasping Subaru's sleeve, her eyes filled with sadness.
Please calm down. Nothing will come of losing control here. And if you do, I won't be able to fight off Master Wilhelm.
Control? What are you talking about? I'd never do anything vileless. Wait. Then what do Mew intend to do with that tablespoon you're squeezing so hard? Maybe your parents raised you badly, but that's not how you hold one. Meow.
When Ferris pointed it out, Subaru realized for the first time that he was holding a tablespoon in his right hand. and that he was crudely gripping it backward like he was going to stab someone with it. How? When did I?
Just like Rem pointed out, violence will get you nothing. Meow. If you fly into a rage here, I'll just keep Rem occupied while Old Man Will slices you in half.
Moreover, I do not want to issue such a command. To do so after you have stayed here for several days would cause political problems, and I would rather not stain the carpet that my father sent me as a present.
In the face of Subaru's insolence, Krush still behaved reservedly. This was at once a display of the greatness of her character and scorn for the powerlessness of Subaru, who had nothing to wield in anger save a tiny utensil. All of it really rubbed him the wrong way. But instead of an apology, dogged insistence came out of his mouth.
So you're not going to lend a hand, no matter what, then?
Correct. Your statements are not credible, nor does cooperating with you hold any attractiveness for my side. Accordingly, I shall observe from a distance.
The witch cult is coming. When they get here, they're going to kill all the people in that village. Knowing but not doing anything means it'll be your sloth that kills the village.
Subaru glared at Krush, invoking the title of a certain despicable madman.
Quite arrogantly put. Consequently, there is one more thing for me to add.
While Subaru gave her a filthy look, Krush stood up, staring straight back into his eyes.
I am able to largely discern whether a person is lying. I can boast that, since far back, I have never once been cheated in negotiations.
Suddenly, Krush began to speak on a different topic. She continued to peer into Subaru's eyes as they clouded with doubt.
If my experience is anything to judge by, what you speak are not lies.
Then,
You wholly believe that your assertions are the truth, and therefore they are not lies to you. Those in such a state are called madmen, Subaru Natsuki.
It was then and there that Subaru clearly understood that negotiations had failed. Continuous clenching of his teeth had cut the edge of his lip, sending blood dribbling down his jaw. Krush narrowed her eyes as she watched the painful image.
Ferris, go ahead and heal him.
I don't need it.
Before Ferris could move a muscle, Subaru rejected the offer and stood, practically leaping from his chair.
Supper time is here. Will you not be joining us?
You wouldn't want to eat at the same table as a madman, would you? No matter how eccentric your taste or style might be, that'd be a bit too far even for you.
Subaru replied to sarcasm with sarcasm as he reached for the reception room door. Following suit, Rem stood at attention and politely bowed to Krush.
It has been a short time, but thank you for the hospitality. On behalf of my master, I offer my thanks.
So this is your no, Marquis Mathes's reply?
Yes, he instructed me to respect Subaru's wishes in all things.
Subaru couldn't see Krush's expression during the incomprehensible exchange, but Krush's voice seemed to bear no small amount of regret as Rem stated her farewells. Whatever she felt, it was clearly not the coldness she'd shown to Subaru, and it was infuriating him.
Rem, let's go.
Picking up the pace, Subaru called out to Rem and opened the door.
Have you anywhere else to turn to?
Make sure you become a good king, okay? The despotic type that tosses aside the weak.
Spitting out his reply without turning around, Subaru slammed the door shut, and thus, in pathetic fashion, the curtain lowered on the negotiations. It was well into the evening when Subaru bolted out into the nobles' district after negotiations had broken down. The sun had already dipped low in the west. The aura of night was slowly creeping over the world. With the light of the crystal lamps lining the road shining down upon him, Subaru leaned back against an iron fence, spitting out curses.
Shit! One thing after another.
The exchange with Krush rose in the back of his mind, and with it, the humiliation he had suffered.
Those know-nothings! Why don't they understand I'm doing the right thing?
The swirling vortex inside his chest was emotion close to hatred toward the woman who had impeded his path. Things had turned out this way because she hadn't seen for herself that tragedy, or the laughter of that cruel, conniving madman. It was because she had not heard it. She hadn't experienced it for herself, so she didn't understand. They were beasts and could not be suffered to live.
Fine already. My messing up people with no feelings, gotta forget all that. Right now, I need to focus more on what's in front of me.
Rather than stand still and mope, the right choice was to move forward, one small step at a time. After all, to Subaru, with so few cards to play, time was a precious thing.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Subaru.
While Subaru tapped a foot in annoyance, Rem passed through the gate, returning to her spot beside him. She was carrying the luggage they had brought with them to. ReZero by Tappei Nagatsuki, produced by Six-Tail Novel with Artail. AI. If you're interested in creating your own audiobook like this, visit Artail AI and claim free premium with code Artail. The Krush residence, neatly packed up and ready to go. After Subaru's caustic outburst and furious exit, he had been waiting while Rem went to gather their things.
Sorry. Give me the luggage. I'll haul it.
It is fine. The bags are not heavy, and you are still recovering, Subaru.
Rem politely declined Subaru's offer and hefted the luggage in her arms. Normally, Subaru would have insisted, but with his mental resources otherwise occupied, he did not dwell on the matter.
Come to think of it, you weren't opposed to leaving, were you, Rem?
Correct. It was your choice, Subaru.
Well, after all that, I can't exactly come crawling back for more healing. Whatever Emilia bargained for it, I feel bad for her. Emilia had tendered something to pave the way for Subaru's medical treatments. Subaru had distinct feelings of guilt on multiple levels for wasting her kindness again. But Subaru was sure it'd be all right. Once he rescued her from this crisis, they'd be able to make up, so she'd probably forgive this too. To that end, among other things, Pateljuice had to die.
Subaru, about the negotiations with Lady Crochet.
She made a big deal about trustworthiness, benefits, and other pointless crap. No shred of human decency in her. How can anyone put up with that high and mighty attitude?
Subaru interrupted Rem with his curses, cutting off her attempt to raise the subject. Perhaps she sensed his desire to not revisit the matter, because she brought up something else.
What will we do now, Subaru? If what you say is true, there is not a single moment to lose.
If
There is not a single moment to lose. Will we be returning to Master Roswaal's mansion?
Subaru interjected about a part of her line that bugged him, but Rem didn't bite. Subaru shook his head in response to her latter question.
Nah, right now, if it's just us heading back, there's not a whole lot we can do. We've got to go with a big enough crew to put up a decent fight, and if we can't do that, we need to find another way somehow. If only Subaru and Rem showed up to help, it would result in a repeat of what had come before. Yes, if they departed sooner than previous times, there was a chance they could make it back to the mansion safely without encountering the witch cult. But it would probably be very difficult repelling the cult with nothing but the resources the mansion had on hand. We just don't have the numbers. What the hell has Roswaal been up to? By himself, Roswaal was powerful enough that they might be able to send the cult packing. So what was that court magician doing at the very moment they needed him most?
Subaru. Actually, in regards to Master Roswaal, there is a very high chance he will be absent from the mansion for several days.
You knew so. Roswaal not being at the mansion was pre-planned?
Master Roswaal was to visit Garfiel's, the place of an important individual within the Dominion, and he planned to stay there for several days.
Shit, his timing sucks. So that's why they can't repel the attack.
Rem's answer bolstered Subaru's concerns, and he clawed at his head as he spat his frustrations like a curse. Now that Roswaal, their greatest weapon, could not be relied on, his earlier estimate rang true. They were at an overwhelming disadvantage. Subaru and Rem turning back early wouldn't make any difference.
Looks like I was right. I've got to bring the cavalry with me somehow.
Subaru, revisiting his first conclusion with renewed confidence, nodded to Rem, who watched him all the while. The objective was set, but time was short. If he wanted to at least do better than the previous two loops, he had to leave the royal capital the following day. Considering that night was falling, this left him with about half a day to work with.
Anyway, we've got no choice but to look for help from someone else. Rem, How well do you know the layout of the capital?
Fairly well, since I have come here several times before and spent quite a bit of time looking around with you over the past few days. But who?
First, let's find an inn. The rest comes after that. At the latest, we need to leave the capital tomorrow, or we won't make it in time. Anyway, I'll think about everything after that.
Subaru bluntly told Rem that they had to prepare to the greatest extent possible. Seeing out of the corner of his eye that Rem had quietly accepted his plan, Subaru looked up at the sky without another word. From the other side, darkness was creeping across the sky above the capital. It felt like it was an ill omen. The shadow moved eerily and sluggishly, as if implying storm clouds were gathering along Subaru's path. Chapter 2: A Pig's Greed 1.
I may not look it, but I am a surprisingly avid reader.
The girl who spoke was sitting in an extravagant chair, resting one elbow upon it. She was flipping through an exquisitely bound book in her other arm, already perusing the latter half, and the sight made her seem different from the girl Subaru remembered. She wore a long-sleeve red nightgown similar to a negligee with an identically colored cape draped over her shoulders. Her voluptuous body was plain to see in her outfit, but the girl showed no outward sign of concern that a man was present. The girl was so natural, completely immersed in her book, that it was easy to forget she was in the middle of receiving a guest. Subaru felt himself unintentionally taken in by the solemnity of her gestures. Her graceful white fingertip traced the characters as her eyes passed over them. The young man felt like he could watch her all day. Perhaps it was because this unknown side of the girl before him had enchanted him. As Subaru stepped on the carpeted floor in his sneakers, he felt unsure of what to do now that he'd been ignored. He was wondering if he was permitted to enter, but the lady of the household was not paying him any attention. When he had tried to forcefully begin a conversation, she'd rebuffed him at the first word. Surely she wasn't telling him to wait until she finished reading her book.
That's excessive no matter how you cut it.
Though he tried to deny his unease, seeing her leisurely turn the pages made that difficult. In point of fact, Subaru knew that the girl's personality was not incompatible with such irrationality. Her hair was orange, reminiscent of the sun. Her eyes were crimson, like a fire that would scorch away everything it touched. She had glossy white skin and a striking feminine figure. The thick perfume wafting around her was like poison. It was difficult for the word beautiful to sufficiently capture the sight of her as she silently examined her book. How much favor must the heavens have shown her for her to be loved by all? Her name was Priscilla Barrio. She was one of the candidates for the royal selection, as well as the next prospective cooperator Subaru sought an audience with. Subaru's shoulders sank when he learned Reinhard was absent from the royal capital, a fact he'd confirmed after departing from the Krusch's compound and while Rem was securing an inn. Reinhard was the last one Subaru had hoped to rely on. An elderly couple inhabited the villa in the capital set aside for the Estrella family and had been charged with its care. When Subaru arrived without any forewarning, the two had welcomed him in and lent an ear to his request. But
The young master returned to the main household with his liege, Lady Felt, and her family some 2 days ago. We can offer contact with him from our side, but...
just as he had mentioned during his visit to the Krusch residence, Reinhard had left. Even though he remembered what Reinhard had said, Subaru had still clung to a slender thread of hope, but his pleas went unanswered. Even if he could reach Reinhard somehow, the distance from the royal capital to the main household of the Estrella family, and from there, the distance to the Mathers' lands, was fatal. The odds of him joining their forces in time were despairingly low. Subaru said his farewells to the elderly couple. Then, once he was out of sight of the mansion, he clutched his head.
Roswaal and Reinhard are seriously useless, and right when I really need them too. This time, everything was going wrong. One prospective collaborator fell through after another, leaving Subaru truly at the end of his rope. If only his return by death restore point brought him back to the night when he parted ways with Reinhard. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Think. I don't have strength, numbers, time, anything. Racking my brain is the only thing I can do. Desperately turning the gears in his head, Subaru earnestly fought to come up with the next best plan of action. Now that he'd scratched Krush and Reinhardt off the list, Subaru had scant few cards left in his hand to pick from. Considering the circumstances, pleading with the Knights of the Kingdom would no doubt produce the same results as his negotiation with Krush. Besides, Subaru felt nothing but mistrust toward them. At the very least, now that Krush, someone he thought he had a good relationship with, had abandoned him, a storm of paranoia toward others brewed inside Subaru. Not even realizing how this was narrowing his already limited options, Subaru could think of only 2 other people. However, one meant bowing his head to the finest of knights, someone he hated more than the knights in general, which was unthinkable. That left Subaru with a single candidate.
Rem caught up finally. Seeing Subaru deep in thought, she called out to him.
Subaru, what should we do now?
It's all right. Leave it to me. You don't have to do anything. Don't do anything. Just stay right behind me. That's enough.
After that interruption, Rem turned a frail smile toward Subaru as he continued thinking to himself.
I absolutely have to stop Rem from bearing the brunt of everything. Subaru knew that if it was to save him, Rem wouldn't hesitate to hurl herself at danger and cast her life away. He had to protect her, no matter what. Subaru was certain that she was emotionally dependent on him, and it was his duty to save her. Whatever might happen, he had to avoid losing her. There was no other option. If he couldn't protect Rem, saving Emilia and the villagers would lose all meaning. Even indulging his hatred of Betelgeuse would be... Wait, that's...
Subaru touched his temple as an exceedingly violent thought instantly came to mind. Just then, it had almost seemed as if eliminating Betelgeuse was a higher priority than saving Emilia and the others. Wasn't that exactly the thing Krush had pointed out earlier?
It's all right. Everything's all right. I'll get this right. I'm gonna do it. I gotta do it.
Subaru reassured himself, seemingly speaking for his own benefit. He ruminated on those words and pretended he had noticed nothing, as if he were putting a lid on top of a bottomless pit. This was the only way Subaru Natsuki could maintain his own sanity. The next morning, as dawn broke, the two returned to the nobles' district to follow the slender thread that bore Subaru's remaining hopes. The nobles' district on the upper section of the royal capital was lined with dazzling buildings. The showy facade of the stately mansion Subaru and Rem arrived at did not betray their expectations. No, it was more appropriate to say that it was showier and more extravagant than they had imagined.
No need to ask around for who this belongs to. I can't imagine anyone would have a hard time figuring out the owner of this place.
Subaru was nonplussed. The sight of the luxurious mansion was not one he'd soon forget, even from afar. The roof was painted over with gold that cast the light of the morning sun in all directions, while a number of intricate images had been engraved into the walls. As far as he could see, there were even reliefs adorning the windows, and a number of statues he could only call avant-garde art dotted the courtyard. The home was an acute reflection of the tastes of a big spender. Subaru couldn't help a dry smile when he considered how the spectacle so aggressively asserted the owner's will. As Subaru was rooted to the spot in front of the gates, Rem stood beside him with a dumbfounded expression on her face for once. If the point of the building's outward appearance was to give guests a shock, it had accomplished its goal 10 times over.
You're not going to tell me this was the previous owner's style, are you? I feel sorry for him.
Well, actually, this is the princess's taste at work. It was a pretty extreme makeover, you know. I sympathize with the folks who worked straight through the night, but she slapped their cheeks with sacks of gold coins so they couldn't complain.
Hey, that's completely different from slapping people around with a wad of bills. Whacking people with a bag of coins would totally count as actual violence.
The man standing on the other side of the gate laughed at Subaru's joke. The man slid his thick fingers into the gap between his black helmet and his neck and scratched. Below his pitch-black full helm, the gateman was dressed roughly, like some kind of bandit. Though he made for an odd sight in general, what stood out most had to be the fact that he was missing his left arm from the shoulder down. This casual, one-armed man who concealed his face, named Al, served as the retainer of the woman Subaru had come to see. Calling himself a mercenary, he was similar to Subaru, summoned from the same world. That was the basis for the strange rapport between them, as well as the reason for Al's friendliness upon their early morning visit.
So what are you doing out here at a time like this? As you can see, I have low blood pressure, so I'm seriously not a morning person. If you're inviting me to go hunting for a bite or something, I might not be completely up for it.
Nothing so tame as a family restaurant. Today, I'm here to speak with your princess.
Princess?
Unable to see the expression behind the helmet, he had no idea how Al was looking at him at that moment. An unpleasant pause followed as the one-armed man seemed to mull it over.
Well, I did get to recharge my supply of maid energy, so I guess I can take a message.
That was more meaningless than I expected. Besides, it's not like you don't have any maids in this mansion, right?
Hey, now you don't understand Princess. You think we can have maids waltzing around when Princess thinks she's the cutest in the whole world. The only thing we have in the mansion is a cute young butler.
My fault for asking. It might lower the value some, but yeah. Can you pass on a message for starters?
Sure thing.
Answered Al in a casual voice, leisurely vanishing back inside the mansion. Rem, standing to the side and a single step behind him, maintained her silence as her neutral expression tightened. But through her fingertips, lightly grasping his sleeve, he could sense the worry she couldn't hide. Subaru wanted to wipe away her concerns, but that wasn't possible when he harbored the same ones.
Well, it is ridiculously early in the morning. In that girl's case, I'd expect her to say something like, "You are interfering with my precious time for Slee."
Hey, you can come in and meet her.
Al poked his head out from the mansion's entrance, his laid-back voice interrupting Subaru's barb. For a moment, Subaru was taken aback at the unexpected speed of the reply.
Isn't it insanely early, though?
You wouldn't expect it, but Princess is one hell of a morning person. The flip side is that she goes to bed really early at night. Either way, come on in. Either way, come on in.
Al laughed at Subaru's hesitation and invited them inside with a carefree demeanor. As they followed behind him, it soon became clear that the building's interior was similarly intense to the exterior. Even an untrained eye could tell. Expensive-looking fixtures and pieces of art were on display in the corridor, almost to the point of impeding movement. The apparently compulsive need to adorn even lamps and picture frames with gold felt like a form of insanity.
I suppose it's all a little blinding at first, but you get used to it. It's not as bad in the morning like this, but the halls are seriously scary at night.
I'm not a little kid, so you don't have to tell me the halls are scary at night. What kind of adult are you?
The eyes of the statues glow.
Your master's messed up in the head.
When Subaru examined the statues lining the hallway more closely, he noticed they had something like gemstones embedded in their eye sockets. They probably would glow when it got dark. Both purchaser and designer had a screw loose. Rem followed behind both of them, and he could hear noises coming from her nose every so often. Rem had a keen sense of smell, and she'd apparently picked up some kind of unsavory scent, staring at the back of the iron helm as they walked along. The trek of the mismatched trio soon came to an end.
Princess is in the top room up there. The whole floor is one really decked out room.
Sounds kind of like a hotel suite. Can we go in?
Well, you can, bro.
Al's reply contained a clear implication when he approached the stairs and indicated the floor above with his thumb. At the unsettling undertone, Subaru shifted a guarded look his way.
Hey now, I'm not saying it to be mean. Princess said she'd only meet with you. The young lady'll be escorted to the guest room.
You think I'll just hand her over when you were talking about recharging your maid energy earlier?
You got me there, but don't worry. I'll be waiting right here in front of Princess's room. It's a pity, but I'll leave escorting the young lady to my senior, Schult.
Anticipating Subaru's concerns, Al's voice suggested he was barely restraining his laughter when he snapped his fingers. Immediately, a young man with curly pink hair and red eyes appeared. The only words Subaru could think of to capture the youth's essence were pretty boy. His small frame was dressed in a butler's outfit, while his face showed a stern, fervent devotion to his duties. But somehow, he gave off the impression of a pervert.
Take good care of our guest, now.
Yes, leave it to me. When Al gave the youth a pat on the shoulder, the pretty boy butler offered a formal reply and proceeded to escort Rem. Instantly, she glanced back at Subaru, seemingly at a loss.
Sorry, wait up for me until we're finished talking. All the dangerous people in this mansion, helmet guy included, are gonna be on the top floor, so just relax and wait up.
That's harsh, bro, making me out to be some suspicious guy. Though intruders do say that about me pretty often.
Subaru ignored Al's peevish reply and stroked Rem's head to put her at ease. Rem almost closed her eyes like she was ticklish, bowing her head as she resigned herself to the inevitable. Afterward, she gently drew close to him and whispered an additional word of caution.
Understood. Please be especially wary of that person.
Rem's eyes looked at Al for only a single moment. Apparently, he'd really set off her alarms.
Got it.
Though Subaru truly wanted to believe in his amiable compatriot, Rem's appraisal of his trustworthiness was more natural. Considering the back and forth at the Krush residence, it was best to regard Priscilla's people as opponents as well. Subaru nodded and smiled. The pretty boy butler led Rem along, vanishing down a corridor.
Pew. Not bad, bro. I see she's really sweet on you.
If you're gonna do that, just do a proper whistle. Not that I can whistle with you.
It wasn't as though the weather was cold enough that it physically prevented anyone from whistling. For the most part, Subaru had bitter memories of how he'd tried and failed to learn to whistle since way back.
No can do. Lips aren't intact. I can't manage a real whistle.
So sorry about that.
The answer was heavier than Subaru had expected, so he abandoned any thought of pursuing the matter.
Well, it's a pity to keep the young lady waiting like this. And Princess gets annoyed and scary if you make her sit around too long. Better head upstairs, pronto.
Short and sweet. Big help. Incidentally, what's Priscilla's mood like today?
Since he was dealing with Priscilla, her current disposition would affect the results of any discussion to a rather frightening degree.
I don't think it's particularly good or bad, so that means you really can go in expecting anything. Princesses' moods can change before, after, or during a conversation, and they can go up, down, left, right, or bounce all around the place. What she likes to talk about isn't set in stone. You need to be good at ad-libbing to get by.
So a no prep match, the worst kind for me.
He climbed upstairs, slipped past a dancing hall, and came to a door, an exceedingly ornamented one.
This is Princess's way too big private room. She never calls me inside, so I wait here while you go ahead.
Ever relaxed, Al sat on the stairs leading up to the door. As he did so, he drew his curved broadsword from his back, of the hip sheath, and laid it over his lap.
She's not in that bad a mood, is she? I don't want to get sliced to ribbons, and I'm tired of dealing with her when she's unreasonable and in a temper.
Sorry, but she's dumped a lot of her unreasonable demands on me too.
After Al gave his petition a blunt reply, Subaru took a deep breath and pushed open the door. And so, we return to the beginning of Subaru's standoff with Priscilla. After he entered, Subaru spotted Priscilla waiting for him at the far end. She sat in a chair positioned above some stairs, elegantly continuing to read, not acknowledging Subaru at all. Without an opening line to get things started, Subaru's bewilderment and nervousness only grew as time steadily pressed onward. That's why when the sound of Priscilla's book suddenly closing shut reverberated through the room, Subaru's shoulders jumped in surprise.
Now then.
Subaru gritted his teeth a little, feeling like his weakness had been blatantly exposed. Priscilla, not looking like she cared one bit, stroked the cover of the closed volume as she made her remarks.
Tut was a boring tale.
You sure looked like you were into it, though.
When reading any book, it is proper to become immersed in the world between the pages and be able to state what was gained after finishing a tale. Only a fool would declare something boring without completing it.
It seemed she was as avid a reader as the claim said. After declaring the foolishness of appraising unfinished books, Priscilla took the volume she had read in full and tossed it into the air without warning. Subaru watched, lost in bewilderment, as the soaring tome suddenly burst into flames. Scorched by the incredibly powerful fire, only black ashes remained dancing in the air.
Now then, this is robbing me of my precious morning reading time. At the very least, have you brought me a tale to pique my interest more than that book?
With a devious, crafty smile, Priscilla recrossed her lithe legs and pointed a white finger at Subaru. He felt as if the heat of her fingertip were pressing against his forehead when he willed his parched tongue to move.
It's about Emilia, a royal selection candidate, same as you. I want you to lend me your strength so I can break her out of a tricky situation she's in right now.
Closing a single eye, Priscilla silently prodded Subaru to continue. Under her red gaze, completely unmoved, Subaru earnestly concentrated on the words he'd rehearsed. And so, he laid out everything over the course of several minutes before reaching his conclusion.
The witch cult, is it? Him.
Propping herself up on her elbow, Priscilla supported her head with her hand as her other hand slapped her knee. Having listened to the very end of the modified version of what he'd said at the Cruz mansion, she had murmured to herself with some deep-seated emotion before she closed her eyes.
Yes, the witch cult. If no one does anything, they're gonna hurt an awful lot of people. Emilia won't be the only casualty. I want to take them down before that happens. That's why I need...
He.
Abruptly, Priscilla leaned forward, her shoulders slightly trembling. Subaru's brows rose at the small sound from her mouth, and Priscilla's head snapped up.
Ha! Amusing. You are very amusing. I see. You've certainly swayed my heart more than that book. You must be incredibly talented to come up with a farce like this.
Priscilla laughed and laughed, mocking Subaru. It was the howl of a fiendish, carnivorous beast. He instinctively understood that this was the kind of smile that a cat might wear while tormenting a mouse to death with its claw.
What's so funny?
That you do not understand makes it a true masterpiece. Tell me, do you actually fail to comprehend just how illogical your actions have been?
Priscilla ran a finger through her orange hair, twirling it around as she giggled in amusement. Subaru remembered this manner of speaking, proclaiming the speaker had seen right through him. It was the same tone that Subaru had heard a number of times at the Cruz mansion. It was saying, "You just don't understand."
I do not know if you simply have no one to rely upon, but going around informing the opposition of your own side's weakness serves only your enemy's interests. For us, seeing you lower your head and say, "We're too weak and desperate, please help us," is a matter for celebration.
Priscilla tapped her temple with a finger as she ridiculed Subaru's desperate plea. He'd considered the possibility that she would brush him off, but he hadn't expected she would tear into him like this.
Not caring about appearances is fine, but you have considered this too little, far too little, aiding the enemy to help your own camp when it falls into crisis. Your behavior is that of a talentless employee. You are hopeless. Death would be far preferable.
Priscilla rose from her chair while hurling insults without restraint, going down the stairs until arriving right in front of Subaru.
Indeed, 'twould be better if I severed your head myself.
The next instant, Priscilla pulled a fan out from her cleavage, resting it upon the carotid artery on the right side of Subaru's neck. He had seen neither her step nor the swing of her arm. Only a master could pull off this move. Even though the fan was not a bladed weapon, Subaru felt like it could lop off his head the instant it moved.
You couldn't even see it?
Priscilla moved aside her fan, speaking as if Subaru's unwitting gulp bored her.
Not just foolish, but slow as well. There's no saving you. Though, to bear with such terrible treatment and still be thinking of your master, I admit such devotion is admirable. And so...
Priscilla narrowed her eyes, audibly opening her fan and using it like a red curtain to conceal her own lips.
Even I would have a bad taste in my mouth if I dismissed you with nothing but a laugh. Thus, I shall grant you an opportunity.
An opportunity?
Yes, an opportunity. This is your big shot. In other words...
Priscilla's pronunciation of the modern phrase was strange. Perhaps she'd learned it from Al. Priscilla folded her fan once more and extended it towards Subaru. For some reason, Subaru could not evade its straight, silent motion as the end of the fan pressed into his forehead, sending him tumbling onto his backside. Then...
Lick it!
Priscilla offered her bare foot before his eyes. Not understanding what she meant, Subaru felt his gaze wander between Priscilla's face and leg.
With Subaru seemingly lost, Priscilla spoke to him gently, as if explaining for the benefit of a poor student or to torment her slave.
Crawl across the floor, ruminate on your humiliation like a pathetic wild stray, and lick my foot like a babe suckling its mother's teat. If you can do this, I shall consider your proposal.
Wah!
If you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. If your meager personal pride comes first, wave your tail, and your master shall abandon you to the wilds. Either way should provide amusement.
Priscilla concealed her lips and smiled, as if to say she would enjoy his fall regardless of his choice. Subaru felt his guts boiling over in anger at the pure malice of Priscilla's behavior. But though he was on the brink of crying out something in a coarse voice guided by emotions, he restrained himself. If he gave in to his feelings and charged ahead, these negotiations, too, would end in failure. He looked between the foot still hanging before him and Priscilla's mocking smile. When he closed his eyes, he saw their faces one after another. Emilia, Ram, Beatrice, and the children and adults of the village. Little by little, he cooled the magma seething inside his belly. In anguish and consternation, he came to the conclusion that
I got it.
enduring the humiliation, Subaru kneeled and took Priscilla's foot in his hand. When he thought of the agony-filled deaths Emilia and the villagers had to endure, how could the humiliation Subaru would taste in their place even compare? To avoid that hopeless future, to find the world he needed to reach, he didn't mind being a dog or worse. His trembling lips neared the top of her white foot about to press against her fair skin. When
It seems you truly are nothing but a very, very boring man.
the kick from right before his nose sent Subaru flying as if he weighed hardly anything. He flipped head over heels, losing track of which way was up. Subaru couldn't comprehend what had happened. An incredible blow slammed into his head, and after a few moments in the air, his entire body crashed into something. At that point, he stopped feeling anything. It took his intermittent conscious thoughts an ill-defined amount of time to catch up and realize he was lying on the floor, limbs splayed. A large volume of some kind of viscous liquid poured out from his nose.
What you have is neither loyalty nor faithfulness. It is filthier than that. It is a dog's existence and a pig's greed. A lazy pig that wants. A swine's greed is the most unsightly of all.
Neither the ringing in his ears nor his nausea would stop. The inside of his skull was spinning. He heard Priscilla's voice from somewhere, but the details weren't sinking into his head.
Even if you drive off the witch cult, I shall destroy your camp by my own hand for harboring such a beast. I have reached this decision based on your thoughtless actions.
As he lay down, she gripped his collar and violently lifted up his body. When his torso was raised, more blood flowed out of Subaru's nose. Subaru coughed, finding it hard to breathe as she insulted him mercilessly at close range.
Take pride in this. It is you who has invited that woman's Emilia's destruction.
She thrust him away at full force, and Subaru's body rolled and slid all the way to the entrance.
Aldebaran.
When she yelled in a sharp voice, the sole door to the outside opened from the other side. Al poked his face in and looked at Subaru, who was covered in blood by the door.
What in the world happened here?
Throw out this repulsive fool, or cut him in half, I care not.
Well, I sure care. Hey, Salmon, bro.
Without a single word of rebuttal to his enraged master, Al easily hoisted up the fallen Subaru and passed through the door. But on his way out, he gently turned his face toward Priscilla in the center of the room.
Don't be so angry, princess. Violence ruins your pretty face, you know?
If you do not wish me to break your broken visages even further, take him and go. I will not say it again, Aldebaran.
Like I said, don't call me that.
Quick on his feet, Al descended the stairs with Subaru over his shoulder and spoke in a considerate voice.
Anyway, it's best if you get out while the going's good. It's Princess. If she changes her mind, it's not unthinkable for her to tell me to cut you down. Get out of here while she still thinks it's all right to not kill you.
A who?
This is bad. I'll call the young lady you brought with you. Just get outside, okay?
Al shrugged at the barely conscious Subaru, a deft feat under the circumstances. After that, he picked up his pace even more, leaping his way down the stairs.
Subaru?
When she saw Subaru sitting slumped against the mansion's gate, Rem's face went pale as she ran over. Subaru was slack-jawed as Rem touched him. She checked the state of his injuries as she chanted a healing spell. A pale light enveloped the wound on Subaru's face.
What happened upstairs?
That looks like our princess's mood turned sour. I told him to be careful, but, well, you have about as much chance trying to perfectly predict the moods of a cat.
Al's reply was rather awkward, but his statement did not carry a single shred of guilt or apology. Rem, aghast at his demeanor, was about to raise her voice in protest.
You don't need to say anything.
Subaru, can you think clearly?
In accordance with his healing concussion, his fuzzy mind had begun to clear. Rem's face brightened at the sound of Subaru's voice, but she closed her eyes, focusing on his treatment.
I really cannot let you out of my sight, Subaru. You were away not even an hour, and yet you return with such grave injuries.
Hey, it's not like I'm trying to get Hugh.
Now that his circulation had returned to normal, blood poured freely from his nose once more. Rem immediately caught the trickle with the hand she had held over him, drawing a handkerchief from her side and placing it against his head.
Please hold this on your nose. The bleeding will stop on its own. I will continue treatment.
Don't. Right.
Subaru held his nose as Rem had told him while he received gradual treatment via mana. Meanwhile, Al watched, nodding as if to say, "Looks like you'll be okay."
There's no point just standing around, so I'll head back inside. I don't know what you were talking about, but from the looks of things, it didn't go well. If you take too long leaving, Princess will seriously tell me to cut you down, bro.
Cut Subaru down.
Hey, don't make that scary face, young lady. I'm saying she will. So get out of here before she gives me any orders. It's not like I want to do something like that.
After his dramatic reply to Rem's overreaction, Al's shoulders sank as he shook his head.
Well, take care of yourself, bro. And young lady. Ah, that's right, you're Ram. Take good care of bro here.
Ram is the name of my older sister. My name is Ram, Master Al.
When Al gave his flippant parting words and turned his back, Rem formally introduced herself. That instant, Al's feet stopped.
Rem?
The one-armed man stopped before he looked up, then slowly turned around.
Don't be silly. You're Ram, right?
I am Rem. Forgive my rudeness. But where have you met, sister, Master Al?
Rem explained how he'd mistaken her for her nearly identical older sister as she posed the question. However, Al made no reply. He raised up his one arm and touched his helm, busily poking the metal.
What the hell's going on here?
Al sounded nervous, seemingly unable to process the information. The increasingly rapid tapping offered further proof.
So you're Rem, and your sister is Ram?
Yes, that is correct.
This might be a weird thing to ask, but is your older sister alive?
I do not understand the meaning of your question. Sister is alive, as she should be.
The instant Rem gave that answer, Subaru, who had been listening to the conversation in silence, felt goosebumps all over his flesh.
This ain't funny.
A low, cold voice, accompanied by a grave echo, reached his ears. Al was leaning forward, his hand over the forehead of his helm, murmuring as if wringing the words out of his throat. It was only then that Subaru understood that Al was the source of the dreadful chill he was feeling. An instinctive alarm went off, telling him that he could not stay here. Rem, sensing the same thing, gently pulled close to Subaru. She suspended the treatment, still bent over as she asked a question in an audibly guarded voice.
Subaru, if I lend you my shoulder, can you stand?
At those words, Subaru dipped his head in a nod, doing his best to match his movements to Rem's.
Hey, relax. I'm not gonna do anything.
With a shake of his head, Al reeled in his ghastly aura and acted like they were needlessly concerned. Subaru's shoulders subconsciously eased as the tension in the air dissipated. Even Rem's neutral expression softened as she, too, felt a sense of relief.
Sorry to say this when the bad atmosphere just lightened up, but you'd better get going. Feels like I'm not in a great mood myself.
Understood. Please tell her thank you for her time.
Roger that. Take care, now.
Concluding the proper social pleasantries with Al, Rem lent Subaru her shoulder. They walked off together, her petite frame supporting his weight as they put Burial Manor far behind them. They descended the hill, growing more and more distant from the mansion, as all the while Al continued to stare at their backs.
You gotta be joking me. So that's what it was. Makes me want to puke.
Now that negotiations with Priscilla Barial had broken down, all paths were well and truly closed.
My top priority was borrowing some muscle, but I guess I can't even manage that, huh?
Battered by despair and powerlessness, Subaru held his nose as the words poured out. Priscilla had crushed him on that crucial day's morning, and already it was nearing noon. Only half a day remained until the time Subaru had set for them to depart from the royal capital. Time-wise, he had even less margin for error. Yet in spite of that, he couldn't claim it was one step forward, one step back. Every step had been backward.
Setting that aside, that shitty, arrogant woman, she forgot all about the time I helped her.
Subaru was referring to having helped Priscilla escape the ruffians who had been surrounding her when they'd first met. The corner of his lips warped, and his tongue twisted in disgust. The fact was, she behaved without the slightest shred of gratitude at the time. But even he hadn't expected her to be that heartless to someone desperately reaching out for aid. And then there was Al, so uncaring that he didn't say a single thing about his master's violent act. They might be from the same world, but the man was useless to him.
Damn every last one of those bastards. They don't know a thing. They don't understand. It's not like they're protecting anyone, but they still get in my way.
Subaru ground his molars in irritation. A cut on the edge of his lip dampened his tongue with blood. But the taste of iron didn't register, only that of anger and humiliation.
Switch gears. Switch gears. This ain't the time to get sidetracked by those two idiots.
He had a lot to process. Having sent Rem off in one final act of resistance, Subaru headed to their rendezvous point. His feet took him down the street, out of the Nobles District, into the capital's central strata, the commercial district. From there, he navigated the crowds, heading straight toward his destination.
Wow! Hey, you mister! You look really hurt. Are you all right?
Huh?
Subaru, surprised by the abrupt voice, shifted his gaze down, looking for its source. The person who hailed him was short in stature, not even reaching Subaru's hip. It was a beast man-child with an orange pelt, big round eyes, and an admirably joyful face, who was apparently stretching upward to get a better look at him.
You're bleeding, aren't you? Sometimes I cut my mouth when I'm eating, so I know! That must really hurt! You look like you're ready to cry.
I'm not bleeding for a little kitty reason like, I'm busy, so later.
Don't you want me to heal it? Sniff, sniff. Sniff, sniff. Besides, the smell isn't just from your mouth, mister. You're bleeding from your nose, too, you know.
The wound Priscilla had given him ought to have already closed, but the girl's sense of smell could apparently still pick it up. The unpleasant memory resurfaced as Subaru tried to brush the girl off, but before Subaru could do so, another girl found her first.
Hey, Mimi, don't be causing people trouble. You know you shouldn't make so much mischief.
At the sound of a soft voice, Mimi looked back, waving energetically with her short arms. The person who had found her approached, smiling at her enthusiasm. Subaru's breath caught. She immediately noticed his expression, which made her stop mid-apology. The momentary surprise vanished. Instead, a look entered her eyes that seemed ready to welcome an unexpected event with open arms.
That's right. You're Subaru? Emilia's knight. Subaru Natsuki. So you're still in the capital, huh? What an unexpected surprise.
She was a small girl with soft, pale purple hair. Her narrowed light blue eyes suggested she had gentle regard for others, but Subaru knew that the girl was avaricious deep down. Even if he was meeting her in a different place, there was no way he could mistake her aura.
Anastasia Hoshin.
I see. You actually remembered me? I was right worried I didn't make much of an impression back there. So, I'm kinda relieved. If you still recognize me after everything that's happened to you, everyone else should be able to too.
Anastasia smiled as she spoke in a Kansai dia, a Kararagi dialect unfamiliar to his ears. Subaru, shocked to have bumped into Anastasia, scanned the area. If Anastasia was there, that man had to be somewhere around.
Relax. Julius is on other business. He's not comin'.
That's so.
Subaru let his discomfort show in his reply once he realized that the reason for his unease was plain as day. Anastasia, putting a hand to her mouth in amusement, seemed to be under the impression he held little love for servant or master. Subaru couldn't bring himself to think of the unexpected encounter as a golden opportunity. In the first place, there was Julius. Given the antagonism between them at the parade grounds, Subaru assumed joining forces with the Anastasia camp was utterly impossible.
Well, you seem to be mostly healed up. I was just a teensy bit worried.
Thanks. You seem in pretty good health yourself.
I'm muddling through, I suppose.
Muddling through.
The Western-sounding reply to Subaru's sarcasm made the kitten laugh with amusement. Apparently, she was called Mimi, and she was accompanying Anastasia.
Should one of the big players in the royal selection be walking around without an escort these days?
I am trying to travel incognito, after all. Is it not working?
Anastasia looked around before showing off her outfit that she had created with the attire of local city girls in mind. Her clothes certainly fit in, but her trademark white fox muffler and huge purse didn't make for a convincing disguise. Apparently, Anastasia gathered as much from Subaru's look of disbelief and laughed.
Well, how do you hide charm like mine? Besides, if anything happens, I have my very reliable, hard-working deputy captain, so no worries.
Reliable, Deputy Captain?
Anastasia stuck out her rather flat chest in pride as she spoke. But when he saw that she meant Mimi, Subaru adopted a dubious expression. Mimi, who was shooting the breeze at the different stalls, didn't look the part at all.
I see you don't believe me, but it's true. She's the second in command of my private army. I think she'd hold her own against Julius a lot better'n you would. Ugh. Did I make you mad? Sorry, my apologies. You just look like a fun person to tease. So oops.
Oops, my ass! Subaru pursed his lips, making his displeasure clear.
If this is just small talk, would you mind letting me be on my way? Unlike you, I have things to do.
Well, you're no fun? Things to do like what?
I have to meet up with the girl who's traveling with me. After that, gotta get a dragon carriage and leave the capital. Stuff.
He was supposed to meet back up with Rem at one of the restaurants lining the royal capital's main street. Whether his pathetic attempts met failure or success, the two had planned to procure the dragon carriage they needed to leave the royal capital within the next few hours.
Getting a dragon carriage, so you say? But can you really? Right now, it's a lot of work finding one here in the capital. I hear it's just one mess after another recently.
Hard getting a dragon carriage? That shouldn't be a...
Subaru would have continued to say problem, but the word caught in his throat. In previous loops, he had taken his dragon carriage for granted when he returned to the Mathers domain. But the vehicle from the first time around was a loan from Cruz. Considering that circumstances had been similar the second time around, he had assumed Cruz had lent them one then as well.
Someone's buying up all the dragon carriages in the capital or something. So if you want to rent one right now, it's gonna take a lot of legwork.
Seriously?
Anastasia suppressed a giggle while Subaru could only murmur in bewilderment. She had no reason to lie. That would be an obstacle to even exiting the capital. Subaru clutched his head, almost unable to believe the difficulties besetting him.
Miss, you shouldn't tease people.
Mimi tugged on Anastasia's sleeve at the sight of Subaru bent over.
Dragon carriages. You mean those lizard thingies? You can just lend him one, can't you, miss?
Wait, you have a dragon carriage I can borrow?
I am company president, so a dragon carriage or two is no big deal, see? But it seems you don't want to talk with me very much. Natsuki?
Sorry for how I behaved earlier.
When she pointed out how Subaru had tried to cut off their conversation, he replied with an awkward expression. Anastasia put a hand to her mouth and giggled when she saw it.
It's fine. It's fine. I forgive ya. In exchange, would you stick with me for another chat? It's very important to maintain smooth relationships with others. How about the shop where you're meeting the girl?
Subaru couldn't summon the words to refuse the adorable merchant's smile.
It's still a bit early for lunch, but it ain't good to sit down without ordering.
Anastasia said this as she returned from the counter carrying a light meal. Vegetables and meat sandwiched between two pieces of bread, kind of like an elongated hamburger. Mimi took it from Anastasia and happily buried her face in it. It was a casual eatery along Main Street, right in front of the main gate of the royal capital. This gate had the most traffic in the entire city, where people ceaselessly entered and exited. The shop was packed. Subaru and the others had taken the last open seats.
Natsuki, you should eat all ya want. Since you were planning to meet that girl here, you must have meant to eat, right?
I feel kinda bad making you treat me to lunch when I'm asking you for a favor. If I really want to eat something, I'll take my meal with my friend later. Anna,
There were many people around, but the establishment wasn't very large. He hesitated to call Anastasia by name in such cramped quarters.
I don't really mind much, but if you're having trouble us in my name, you could call me young lady.
It'd be even harder to say that anyway about the dragon carriage.
Cutting right to the chase, You won't please your business partner if you prioritize only what you want. The core of negotiation is how much you can please the other party. You're not too good at that, Natsuki?
Chiding Subaru for being in such a hurry, Anastasia bit into her meal of vegetables and meat. The way she licked the sauce was charming somehow. Though she differed from Krush and Priscilla, Anastasia similarly possessed a unique charisma in each and every gesture that was nothing like ordinary people. Perhaps he ought to say that all the royal candidates had a special essence.
It's a little awkward if you stare at me while I'm eating. I wasn't raised with very good manners. You see, am I doing something strange?
I haven't been educated in high culture enough to judge something like that. I don't think it's weird at all. You just don't, often see a woman opening her mouth wide like that.
Are you trying to get into my good graces? If so, you gotta do way better than that.
Anastasia snickered as she criticized Subaru's clumsy approach. Her heartless appraisal had quickly brought Subaru to his knees.
I'm not kidding around here. I'm really in a bind. That's why I want to get to the point.
If you wanna appeal to my sympathy, that's the worst plan possible when you're dealing with a girl like me. But I applaud you for trying. You need a dragon carriage, right?
Anastasia spoke while pulling a pen out of a pocket. From there, she spread open the paper wrapped around the pen, quickly jotted something down, and neatly folded the sheet.
I've written down the location of a shop that should still have a dragon carriage, and added my signature. This is all you need to accomplish your goal, Natsuki.
Well, no need to act all high and mighty about it.
I sure will. It's no fun if I just hand it over for free, is it?
Speaking softly, Anastasia put the folded piece of paper down on the table. She gently rested her palm over it, hiding it from view, and grinned at Subaru when he winced. The smile on her face looked different from the ones he had seen on her before.
Don't tense up your shoulders like that. It'll be fine. I just want you to stick with me for a little chat. It's sad when you can't talk about anything except what you really need to. I don't think I'm being too greedy for wanting to shoot the breeze with ya till that girl of yours shows up.
Why? This is a lot of trouble just for some small talk with a guy like me. Not like you're gonna get anything out of it.
I don't think there's a single thing in this world that's meaningless. You never know who might end up giving you insight. And out of everyone, I feel like you might have something special for me. Natsuki.
I'm not really grateful if that's the impression you got from me at the Royal Selection Assembly.
It's not like I've met you anywhere else, Natsuki.
Subaru's desperate attempt at sarcasm was sliced down and cast aside by a sound argument. After evaluating Anastasia's request and goal, Subaru immediately resigned himself to his fate.
Just to be clear, we're only going to talk until Rem gets here, and then I'll have you hand over that paper.
I certainly lie and deceive people, but I assure you this is true. I can put that in writing if you'd like.
You didn't even blink when you said that. What do you want to talk about?
I told you when we started, didn't I? The core of negotiations is to get in good with the other party. If you want to get better at talking, you gotta get better at listening. A solid start would be finding out what your partner's interested in.
Or more candidly, don't look like you're simply putting up with the conversation. It would be bad for Subaru to stray from his commitment and sour her mood. He scratched his head and sank into thought.
Hey, miss. Miss, I want to eat more of what I just had. Please?
Sure, eat all you like. Ah, don't make your mouth messy with the sauce. We don't want that adorable face getting dirty, do we? Well, that's kinda cute too.
Wipe it for me. Rub, rub. Yay, I'll be back.
Once Anastasia cleaned up her face, Mimi flew over to a shop worker in very high spirits. Subaru did a double take as he watched the tiny girl.
Earlier, you said that Runt is second in command.
What? You're asking about Mimi and not me? You swing that way, Natsuki? Is it because you have a thing for kitty ears? That's why you're trying to get close to my girl.
I don't have any weird fetishes like that. In the first place, if I were into that, anyway, no. It simply caught my interest. I think you said something about a private army?
Subaru clenched his teeth as he recalled the image of a cat-haired knight at that mansion full of know-nothings.
For what it's worth, they're pretty famous in Kairagi. They're the Hoshin Company's own mercenary band, the Iron Fangs. I'm their sponsor. So of course, I get the privilege of choosing the members.
Anastasia spoke while shifting her gaze to Mimi, who looked absent-minded all the while.
She's super cute, isn't she? She's so much fun to hug and go to sleep with, you know?
It's my turn to ask if you swing that way. She's. You're not telling me you twisted arms to get someone like that in a second in command, are you?
No need to worry. It's fine. I told ya, didn't I? That girl's the number 2 of the Iron Fangs, all right, and she has skills worthy of deputy captain. That's why I can stroll around the capital with only her.
Sensing absolute trust in Anastasia's comments, Subaru observed Mimi's back once again. She really didn't look strong at all, but her master's words were convincing all the same. A candidate for the royal selection would never walk around with a lone bodyguard if that person wasn't capable.
Ah, just to get this out, I won't talk in detail about the members, okay? I'm not generous enough to put all my cards on the table. In fact, I'm pretty confident it's a bad idea.
Well, that doesn't make you sound as confident at all.
Though she'd blunted any effort to poke deeper, Subaru engraved the name of the Iron Fangs into the back of his brain as one more potential threat. If he and Anastasia became over-enemies at some point, it would be yet one more wall to overcome.
Natsuki, your brow is too wrinkled. You look like you're glaring.
I was born with this face, okay? No need to go picking at a guy's complexes.
Complex? That's fine. That said, you mentioned your birth, but where were you born? Natsuki, we don't see black hair very often around these parts, and your outfit stands out too.
I was born in Japan on Earth, and this is a tracksuit, probably the only one in the world.
It was a strange topic. His honest answer sounded like he was dodging the question entirely. Sure enough, it made Anastasia pout, her face clouded.
Japan of Earth. Never heard of it. But where is that?
past the Grand Cascade, far to the east, and then farther east past that is Zipang.
The Grand Cascade? Subaru gave a flippant answer, expecting her to burst into laughter, but Anastasia sank into thought. Subaru raised an eyebrow at her completely unexpected reaction.
You're not gonna laugh? Reinhard thought it was pretty stupid.
Well, you see, once in a very great while, you hear about people who hail from beyond the Grand Cascade. I never expected for you to claim your homeland is there, though.
What? There's other jokers besides me. Famous people, even.
If you want to know more, I think you should study up on Hashin of the Wastes.
Anastasia still wasn't laughing when she offered him a piece of advice. Subaru cocked his head at the mention of Hashin of the Wastes. After all, that was Anastasia's family name, and Subaru recalled that Hashin of the Wastes was also a heroic tale.
You're not actually related to this Hoshin, are you? I thought I heard you saying you took up the name for yourself.
It's the name of the founder of Karararagi. As a Karararagi native, I'm not completely unconnected, but there's no blood relationship. I just decided to call myself that. Fitting for someone who rose up to become a goddess of commerce. Don't you think?
Damn, you've got a lot of guts to come right out and say that.
She apparently rated her exploits high enough to warrant declaring herself a goddess without any hint of irony. He recalled Anastasia's boast at the royal selection meeting that she wanted to get a kingdom for pure self-interest. That performance put her on a one-way train. There was no going back for her now.
If I fail, people will point at me and laugh. But I've come this far. I'm not gonna talk too highly of myself when I'm still halfway to where I'm going.
Subaru had heard only a tiny bit about Anastasia's birthplace during her demonstration of conviction at the royal selection meeting. Apparently she'd been born in the slums of Kararagi, and afterward rose to her present position on the merits of her genius alone. A great mercantile house, as famous as any nation, served her, and she had declared herself as a candidate for the royal throne. Not for the first time, Subaru felt like the person before his eyes was unlike any he had seen before.
How can you do that much? Aren't you afraid of failure?
Oh my, Natsuki. Have you finally taken a proper interest in me?
Subaru didn't have a plan. He'd simply voiced his honest doubts. Perhaps, just as Anastasia had taken it, he asked the question because he was finally looking straight at her. Not a troublesome opponent, not someone connected to Julius, but Anastasia, the individual.
Aelbed. Huh. I'd say I'm afraid of that too. I'm not exactly claiming I've won every battle I fought to get to where I am now. I've just kept winning the ones that really mattered.
You never wonder if you've won enough of your bets. I mean, you have plenty as it is. You're a big-time merchant. You have lots of people around you, and...
Can I really say I have plenty? I don't even know what would satisfy me.
Her low voice and piercing light blue eyes made Subaru unwittingly stare at her. As Subaru fell silent, Anastasia finally softened her lips and suddenly changed the subject.
I have a dream.
Subaru said nothing as she tapped a finger against the counter, ignoring him.
I've carried that dream with me since my time in the slums, never knowing what the next day would bring. Trying my hardest to live. I want everything I can get my hands on.
Everything you can get your hands on.
My dream is to see just who I can become, just how far I can go. But I won't compromise one bit until I'm satisfied I've done that. As long as I live, everything I can reach and take hold of will be mine. Will I die penniless, or will I die fulfilled by the innumerable possessions around me? My life is one big contest until I get one result or the other.
Subaru was overwhelmed. He realized that the small-statured girl before him was an amazing person, someone he might even look up to. Her fundamental character as a human being differed from Crucia's and Priscilla's. The power of her charisma was in no way inferior to theirs. No, to Subaru, in that moment, he had a much more favorable impression of her than the other two. With the division between him and the know-nothing Crucia, and considering Priscilla's arrogant dismissal, he thought that Anastasia might just be a heaven-sent final thread of hope that he might be able to count on. For Subaru, Unable to gather any reinforcements, this was one last possibility if he wanted to borrow strength from others.
Hey, Anastasia, there's something I really want to talk to you about.
Subaru, who had initially treated Anastasia as a nuisance to be swept aside, was now meek toward her. I can depend on her. At that, though, the image of Julius flickered in the back of his mind, stabbing Subaru's chest, but he suppressed that emotional wound with all his might as he tried to broach the topic.
Time out. It's just been you asking questions this whole time. I'm happy that you've taken an interest in me, but this isn't very fair, is it?
Anastasia cried foul and brought his determined move to a halt.
That's not really enough to call it No, never mind. Talk to me.
Yes. Compromise is real important. It's an issue of personal relations that comes even before negotiating. Natsuki, you look like you're leaving the royal capital. But have you done enough sightseeing?
Don't call it something casual like sightseeing, geez. I'm not, and I'm sure you aren't, either. Is this really the time for a trip just to feel better?
Subaru shot down the topic, interrupting his subject.
I don't plan to just travel around, but don't turn up your nose at seeing the sights. People get something out of just exploring a place with lots of people in it and taking a look here and there.
Midway, Anastasia's strained smile vanished as she lowered her voice slightly. That change in her demeanor and expression stole Subaru's attention. She indicated the street with her chin.
The atmosphere on this avenue's changed, like the shopping area before it. Did you notice, Subaru?
Now that you mention it, it feels way more hostile, somehow.
Subaru had known the sights of the royal capital for only a total of several days and hours, but even he could sense that the air of the royal capital felt different on his skin.
The looks on people's faces have changed. The talk about the royal selections brought all kinds of misers out of the woodwork.
I think you're the pot calling the kettle black, especially when you're the one poking into their business.
Hey, when you compare the people going for tiny piles of coins to a gal who's after a whole kingdom, they're pretty pathetic. Besides, in business, speed is the name of the game. When you look at what people with a nose for money are doing, you see more of the big picture.
Anastasia thought about the big picture in a way Subaru could not fathom.
When the ones at the top move, then the people start to move. When the people move, things move too. So right now, traveling merchants are pouring into the royal capital from all over. If the people are there, things follow. So I can see this, and that, about what's to come.
The things you see are merchandise. Is there some special meaning to what they're selling in the capital right now?
You caught on fast. Incidentally, the prices of quite a few goods are in flux around here at the moment. But things made of metal have gotten especially expensive. Someone's snapping up weapons like swords and spears inside the capital and out.
Iron and weapons. I feel like I've heard about that before. From Otto.
The conversation was from when he had traveled with Otto during the first time going through the loop. Otto had been drowning in drink because he'd been carrying a large quantity of hard-to-sell goods. Apparently, his bankruptcy really had been assured.
Swords and armor, so not just iron itself, but weapons and stuff? You don't think the people gathering up all that are planning to start a war, do you?
Who's to say? It's possible the goal is more financial in nature. Work in the market to favor you is more than enough reason. Merchants collude with one another quite a bit. If they think something's worth getting, they'll grab it by the throat.
Suba readily accepted Anastasia's reasoning. Certainly, merchants would be grateful toward another party creating a favorable business opportunity for them. A thriving industry was connected with a thriving city.
From the way you're talking, is the person gathering up iron pretty well known? Who is it then?
It's someone you know very well, Natsuki.
Someone I know?
Duchess Krush Karsten. She's been on an iron buying spree here in the capital.
Krush is?